Hi guys, my name is Judith and I'm going to tell you some differences between Indians and Americans. What qualifies me to be making this video? Well, I've been in an interracial relationship with my boyfriend who is Indian, born and raised in India, for 3 years now. So within those 3 years, we've run into a lot of interesting conversations and things that we have noticed are different between Indians and Americans. So first thing, which I think is a little bit more common, is that in India, if you eat eggs, that's not considered vegetarian. So eggs are non-vegetarian. But here in America, if you eat eggs, you're still a vegetarian. Like, eggs are vegetarian. Second thing, Indians love their bright white light. You will go to Indian stores and it will be like you're walking on a stage on a fashion runway because the lights are white, they're bright, they're those like very harsh hospital lights so that you can see the merch, you can see each other. And I just thought that was very interesting because I sometimes feel like it's intense, like it's much more intense than our supermarkets. I feel like, have you ever been to a Patel? It's a lot, but I think that like back in the day, those type of lights were considered like wealthier because they were more expensive, so the vibes have maintained. So I learned about number 3 because during the time of my relationship, I had a family member pass away. But in India, after someone dies, you wouldn't buy anything new and you won't get married. So apparently, like if you were on a marriage site or meeting people to try to get married and you had a family member die, then you could no longer do that for like a year because you can't get married the year after someone close to you dies. Number 4 is that Indians know their blood type. So apparently you have to know so that if you go to the hospital, like you can just tell somebody. Here in America, I don't even know my blood type right now, like to this minute. It's 2025 and I don't know my blood type. But that's because doctors here don't ever share it with you. And I don't feel like it's something that they test for unless you're donating blood or it's something specific. So yeah, I don't know my blood type, but most Indians do. Number 5 is also something to do with like medical field, but Indians use antibiotics way more than us Americans do. I feel like for more minor things, they're more willing to use antibiotics while we wait to use antibiotics when it's something like pretty severe. And I believe they're really easy to get over there. Like I even think that they might be over the counter. So very easy to get. While they're not over the counter medications here, you have to go to a doctor for a prescription. So this may not be surprising to Indians, but this was surprising to me as an American. But Gandhi is not as big of a player in Indian independence as we're taught in school. So I learned about Gandhi in private school back in grade 6, and how he basically was the main person who was leading Indian independence. And I feel like the history that we got told is not completely true, although this happens everywhere for several nations, like history lessons and what they want to teach their citizens. But I just feel like the history that we learn about India here in America is not very accurate, not very in-depth. So yeah, there are just so many more players in Indian history than we learn about that we never even hear about. I'll just put some names on the screen if you're interested in doing your own research. If the internet hasn't already updated you about some of the shady things that Gandhi did that they don't teach you in school, then yeah. And I may be a little bit salty about not knowing a lot of things because in grade 6, I wrote about how out of everybody in the world, Gandhi is my biggest role model and I want to be just like him. But I was in 6th grade and this was just going off of what they were teaching me. So back to the list. So this next one is really, really interesting to me. And it's that Indians have their husband or their dad's name on their ID, which is unheard of here in America. your ID is just your information. It has nothing to do with your family. But on Indian IDs, it says, like, if you're a woman, then it'll say, if you're an unmarried woman, it'll say your dad's name. And if you're a married woman, it would say your husband's name. And if you're a man, it would always say your father's name, because that's the person who is responsible for you, and who the police would contact, I assume, if there were ever a situation or altercation where they need to get into contact with somebody else for legal reasons, you know. Okay, for the next one is that Indians follow Vastu, which I had never heard of before my boyfriend and before we had like looked at apartments. So basically, Vastu is this like whole belief about which way things are supposed to be placed in your house and where things are supposed to be in your house. I know it can get very granular or very general, but apparently everyone has like a different things that go well for their Vastu based on their birth charts. So I know that some of the things that people look for in Vastu are which way your entrance door is, where you place certain pieces of furniture, because they see the apartment as like a body, and you wouldn't want like trash in the brain, so you wouldn't want your trash bin in a certain location of the house. And I know that this can get very granular, and I don't feel like I know super in depth about all the very specific things, but I do know that there are whole like architecture companies who build Vastu friendly buildings, and like it's a really big thing in India and even in America and like the Indian community, like in Jersey. The next thing is that Indians call each other sir, and it's like it's not as formal as it would be here in America. Like I don't feel like I've ever called anybody sir in my adult life. I feel like maybe as a child I would call someone sir, but almost never. And sir is kind of just seen like so formal that I don't feel like it's ever used past maybe if you're a child. But if someone's older than you, like at work, you can just call him sir. Like it's very casual. And I didn't know that. Yeah, there's a lot of like differences in like Indian English versus American English, but that's a whole different video. You can add that to a list of lots of things that are different, but that's just one of them. Also, the work culture would be another different thing that I've noticed. Apparently, like Indians like to come in a bit later. They're expected to stay later, like on notice, while Americans are more like, we're working 9 to 5. You're gonna be here at 9 o'clock. You're gonna leave at 5 p.m. I mean, unless there's something really big happening. But I feel like work culture in India is more fluid. In India, they have something called bench, where they'll hire, like if a team needs 5 people, they'll hire 6 people, and one of those people will be on bench. And so they won't be doing any work, but they'll be there in case, you know, someone has to go on paternity leave, or someone got sick, or a death in the family, because also in India, deaths are given like longer periods to grieve, while here in America you get like 3 days. It's insane. It is insane. They just expect you to just pick yourself up and go back to work. Like you literally get days. While in India it's like a whole process, which it should be. But anyways, that's besides the point. So yeah, they'll put somebody on bench and they'll get paid to just be on bench and to be on like standby, which I could only pray to be on bench. Another thing I learned that has to do with government is that for all government documents in India, you have to mark your religion. So like if you're a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're a Hindu, and you have to mark, I don't even know if agnostic or like atheist is an option over there. I think that's interesting because I don't feel like you mark your religion on very many government documents here in the States. So yeah. In India, you can bribe people to get your way. Cops, just things. Like if you have money, you can probably make it happen. Well, here in America, if you were to try to bribe a cop, I feel like you're not getting anywhere. You might just get yourself into more trouble at that point. Just don't, you can't bribe a cop here. And not to say that people with money here can't make the legal system bend for them, but we're talking about having much more money than somebody in India would need to have to like bribe a cop. Like pretty ordinary people can do bribes, but like here in America, you need to do like whole scandals if you're gonna do that. It's like much harder, basically. I'm not here talking on scandals. I didn't say anything. Another government related thing is that suicide in India is illegal. I mean, like if you're successful, you get away with the crime, right? Not promoting anything. But I'm just saying it's illegal. Like if you do it and then you fail, I guess there are legal penalties because by law it's illegal. But here it's not illegal. You just land yourself into some grippy socks at the mental hospital. And the last thing I have on my list is last because I can't confirm, but my boyfriend says that most people in Delhi don't know how to count over 10 in Hindi. I don't know how true that is. Why don't you let me know in the comments how true that is? But I also only know my numbers up to 10, so I'll fit in perfectly. So those are just some of the interesting things that I have learned while being in my interracial relationship that are different between Americans and Indians. I find it super interesting to see how different we are and how different things are. So just comment down below other things that you may know that I didn't mention, because I would love to know and have a conversation about it. And yeah, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.